Chairman, General Dunford, congratulations on your nomination, and thank you for your 38 years of distinguished service and your leadership as Commandant of the Marine Corps. Our nation is fortunate to have a military leader such as you serving at a time of great peril. I want to ask a question of you that is the same question I asked your predecessor, General Dempsey. If the objective were to destroy ISIS, not to weaken them, not to degrade them, but to utterly destroy them within 90 days, what would be required militarily to accomplish that objective?
Senator, my assessment is that it would not be possible to destroy ISIL within 90 days, and I also don't believe that we can develop an enduring solution simply with military force against ISIL, although I do think the military aspect of the campaign is critical.
Well, if the time frame I've suggested is not feasible, let me ask you a follow-up question, which is what would be required to destroy ISIS and what time frame is necessary? Specifically, if that were the objective, what would be required to accomplish it militarily?
Yes, Senator, if I'm confirmed, I'll continue to look at this issue, but my perspective today is that this is a long-term endeavor. This is on the order of years, not months, in order to defeat, destroy, in your words, ISIL.
And what would be required to do that in whatever time period is necessary?
Yeah, from a military perspective, Senator, the two things that we're doing, I think we need to continue to do, and that is to take action to deny ISIL sanctuary wherever it may take root, both in Iraq and Syria and elsewhere. It will require us to build local forces, build partnership capacity, if you will, of the local forces that would be the real defeat mechanism for ISIL in the respective countries, given the way that it's spread right now. You'd have to have effective governance so that you had the conditions set for long-term stability where ISIS could not then get traction again in the future. Would have to address the foreign financing of ISIS, where they get their money, as well as their economic assets within each one of those countries. Would have to address the movement of foreign fighters back and forth. And probably as importantly, the one thing we need to do, Senator, is we need to undermine the narrative of ISIL and discredit the narrative of ISIL.
In your personal judgment, are you concerned about the rules of engagement for our current use of air power, that it is overly constraining the effectiveness?
Senator, I'm not. And one of the reasons is that when we go to war with our values, and we conduct proportionality in the planning and discrimination and execution. And the thing that we're doing now is ensuring that we don't have civilian casualties. And I think that, frankly, supports our narrative and gives us the credibility we need to be successful long-term in this campaign.
In recent days, the administration has informed Congress that we are arming the Kurds. This is something I have called for a long time. I spoke this week with a senior Kurdish leader who reported that the commanders on the ground of the Peshmerga are not confirming that. What can you tell this committee about the extent to which we are providing serious arms to the Kurds and it's actually getting to them rather than being bogged down in Baghdad?
Senator, first, I would agree with you. The most effective ground forces, both in Syria and Iraq today, are in fact the Kurds. My understanding is that the issues associated with supporting the Kurds have been addressed, and they are now getting the support, the material support that they need, as well as the training that they need. And if I'm confirmed, I'll certainly, as a matter of priority, go over there, visit, and make sure that I'm able to make my own personal assessment, based on the facts on the ground.
Will you commit to providing this committee with specific details in terms of what is being done to arm the Kurds?
I will do that, Senator.
Let me ask concerning Iran. If Iran were to acquire nuclear weapons, what is the national security risk, in your judgment, to the United States of that occurrence?
Senator, I think it's significant, particularly if accompanying that is intercontinental ballistic missile technology. It's a significant threat to our nation. It's also a destabilizing effort in the destabilizing action in the Middle East. And I think we can expect a proliferation of nuclear arms as a result of Iranian possession of nuclear weapons.
So, General, my final question. I'm concerned about morale in the military. We've discussed in this hearing how the world is getting more and more dangerous, and yet at the same time I think we are dramatically undermining our readiness, our ability to defend this nation. The Military Times did a survey where in 2009 they asked soldiers whether overall the quality of life is good or excellent. 91% said yes. In 2014, that number had dropped from 91% to 56%. Likewise, they asked whether the senior military leadership has my best interest at heart. In 2009, 53% agreed. In 2014, that had dropped in half to roughly 27%. Do you share the concerns about declining morale in the military? And if so, what do you see as the causes of it and the proper approach to fix it?
No, Senator, thanks for the question. First of all, with regard to the morale of our force, it's clearly one of the things that distinguishes us, and I was able to say in my own opening statement that we have the most capable military force in the world today, and that clearly is rooted in the men and women that we have in uniform and their willingness to do what we've asked them to do over the last decade, and it's not something I'd be complacent about. I do have concerns as a service chief about how hard we've been running our men and women over the last few years. As an example, Senator, you know, we had a plan where we wanted to have a 1 to 3 deployment to dwell ratio. That means our forces would be deployed about 7 months, home for 21 months. That allowed us to get adequate training, allowed us to take care of the families, allowed the Marines to kind of be at what I describe as a sustained rate of fire. Many of our units now inside the Marine Corps are at or below a 1 to 2 deployment to dwell rate, so they're home for less than twice as much time. So they'll be deployed for 7 months, home less than 14 months, and back out again, and that continues on, and certainly has an effect on the families and again our ability to train across the range of military operations. If I'm confirmed, Senator, this is absolutely going to be one of the areas that I focus on. I think I have a responsibility to lead the young men and women in uniform. I think I have a responsibility to represent them. And when I say represent them, that means to articulate to our leadership, both here on the Hill as well as in the executive branch, what material support, what leadership, what resources they need to remain the finest fighting force, you know, in the United States. And it bothers me greatly if our young men and women don't have confidence in their senior leadership. And I can tell you that every day when I wake up, if I'm confirmed, that'll be an issue, a priority for me, that'll be exactly what I seek to do, is gain the trust and confidence of our young men and women and let them know that they are, in fact, properly represented back here in Washington, D.C., and that we as leaders recognize that we're asking them to do a lot, and they don't ask much more in return than to have the wherewithal to accomplish the mission with minimal loss of life or equipment. And I'll commit to you that that's exactly what I'll do.
Thank you, General. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hasn't sequestration